we have been an advocate and love, love, love Bioseal forever and ever. And just really appreciate y'all spending the time with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's great to be on, and I really appreciate the chance to kind of discuss this single use topic and to help people understand some of the challenges that are out there and some of the ways we can help. When I started Bioseal 33 years ago, I came out of a hospital, and one of the weird little products that I pulled out was Montgomery straps. I mean, I would guess most people now don't even know what a Montgomery strap is, but it was a pretty big deal back then because you would have to cut them down to 3-hole or 4-hole or 2-hole and put some kind of tie with it, and then package it and sterilize it. And it was, I mean, every ABD surgery, anything that was abdominal, they were doing an open surgery then. So it was a huge product. And so it was one of the first products we started making, just little kits of 2, 3, 4-hole with a twill tape with it, which, I think at some point in time, we probably did, I don't know, 500,000 a year of those. And now I would tell you we probably do about 10,000 a year or something like that, because there's no more open surgery. Everything's done laparoscopically, right? So,
Right.
but that was kind of the what we took out of the hospital and said, why should you be spending that kind of labor? You just outsource that and buy it as a product. And so that's not a product anymore, but there's other things that are, so whatever you're, like, I got kind of back to the beginning, whatever you're kind of buying as a disposal and needs to be sterile, that's not available sterile, you should ask us about it. We may have it, or we may be able to do it.
So you guys really have a validation process. So you can take pencils or anything that we should not be reprocessing. We don't have that capability, and we are way out of the scope of best practice if we are reprocessing a rubber band or safety pin or anything like that. That manufacturer does not have an instruction for use for patient use and reuse. So you guys have a process to validate all that and send it to us packaged, sterile, done. I don't have to spend the time doing these little things anymore.
Right. So just like you have, Amy, ST79, we have our own version of that as a manufacturer. And the basic idea is this, that we sterilize with two methods. We use gamma radiation and we use ethylene oxide. And for those two different practices of sterilization, we have validations that use the worst case scenario. And what we can do, there's an AMI standard for us to adopt product into our existing cycle. We typically will take the product, we'll do some bioburdens on it, which is to determine what the count of bugs on there and what they are. Are they harder to kill than what we would call in gamma, our dose setter, or our PCD, our process challenge device, which is in the EO world. And then if it's less than that, and we can kill it easier than what the process challenge device is, then we can adopt it into that method. And that gives us, so to give you an idea of what the process challenge device is for EO, it's a spore that's got it's your typical spore with the hardest to kill thing. I forget what that is. Steromophilus. Anyway, there you go. But it's buried underneath the plunger of a syringe, capped syringe without a breathable cap, in a double peel pouch. Mm-hmm. So good luck getting anything into there, but that's what we take that, and then we give it a half cycle and test it for sterility. We don't reprocess, so we're not going to take something that's been used in the field and then re-sterilize it. And we're not going to take something that's implantable and sterile, that's, so for us, we have to either file a 510K or have a device listing for all of the products that we sell. So they are either listed, and typically they're going to be class 1 devices or class 2 devices. And we have a few 510K items, but most of our products are now exempt because FDA has exempted a large number of the class 2 devices. But we can package and sterilize a lot of product under that with those limitations.
And you help us in sterile processing stay within best practice limits. So we're not going to get dinged if accreditation surveyor comes through and we threw some 4x4s in the tray real quick, we're not going to get dinged for that.
Right. I mean, like you would see a product that may come from J&J. It's going to say package is sterile unless open or damaged. You know, we bring that same guarantee. So the burden is on Bioseal to provide that information. And I mean, I can't see 34 years. We've never had an accreditor, you know, somebody that's on a, you know, in a hospital ask us for any of that documentation. But we would have it if they asked for it. And we're ISO 13485 2016 certified. Actually, in August we get our next audit. So we better be ready for that. Anyway, we get an auditor who comes out and checks us, as do that other group of people with the 3 letters, I think FDA. They come and audit us as well. And so we're not without somebody checking out what we're doing. And
that makes me feel better as a user. How is this going to save me money if I don't have to spend time with one of my technicians processing all this stuff, repackaging it without, you know, a validation? So I know I'm not within best practices, and I know I can get dinged for this, but what are you going to do? They need it. How is it cheaper and a better solution to use the Bioseal product?
So it's funny. I was amazed at how much pressure gets put on people in SPD. I've been in children's hospitals where they've needed certain kind of tubing, and they couldn't find it latex free anywhere, and they needed it now. And I seriously heard someone say, "Are you going to tell the parents of this child that needs surgery today that you're not going to process this, and we're going to have to postpone this operation?" And I was floored that I heard that. And when you start looking at it, a lot of it though comes down to time, and staff, and importance on what they should be, you know, prioritizing for what they should be sterilizing. So a lot of times there's a lot of added costs that they don't think about, and it racks up real fast. But one of the biggest ones, labor hours. So when you're able to output that, you know, for someone like Bioseal to take on, we can do it, and then we send it right back to you, guaranteeing everything, and we take on all the responsibility. So now you're not going to have to worry about this stuff. So now you can focus on the more important things, and I think that's the kind of general thing that we like to let everyone know, that let us take the burden off of you.
In about 2009, it was only like a 17% chance that you were going to get a finding during a accreditation survey. In 2019, which is the last full year of reporting, that's up to 72%. I don't want us to continue relying on, well, if the surveyor doesn't catch us, it's a good practice. And we don't say that out loud, but we know when things are like, can we do this? Like, safety pins are made of steel, and we can sterilize steel. So kind of, no, you can't.
So, it's funny to me to kind of bring that up, because I remember at one of the hospitals that does our or purchases our heart tourniquets. One of the main things when you talk about, you know, costs, I mean, they were having to send, you know, the silk suture thread up there, the tubing, and tools to do it up to the OR for them to make it in there. And that thing is frustrating to kind of get to go through. And we all know the OR, time is money. So you don't need to be up there, you know, making things for surgery right there in the OR. So it's just another way that we're able to really help save a lot of money, as well as making sure they're doing everything the right way.
How many people are looking up the IFU? Here's my experience as an educator, right? And Blanket's coming in to university with me years and years and years ago, right? And help me teach and educate to kind of show alternatives with that, and SUDs and IFUs and what the differences are. But what we understood is that the culture back then, and sometimes from time to time now, is they didn't show it to me that way. I learned this way, or they showed it to me this way, and this is the way we've always done it. You might hear that from time to time right now, but we used to hear it a lot. So who's looking the IFU up? Who's taking the time to do it? The energy spent, the time out that you have to take to research the product you're using, I don't think is being done to the extent that it should be.
I've kind of noticed this sometimes whenever I go into some of these managers' offices, we talk about IFUs. Some of the IFUs they'll run across. I mean, you got to be a rocket scientist to understand some, because some of the way some of them are written, it's not for
That's right.
us to understand. It's for some of them to just be legally protected if something goes wrong. And it's not written for an average person to even understand what to do. What is the process? I mean, you can read it 30 times and still have no idea what they're even asking you to do. So I wish there was a way to make some of this easier. But again, when we talk about like the value that Bioseal brings and dumping that responsibility on us, think of how many less things you're going to have to look up or wonder if I'm doing this right or not. I mean, patient safety is our biggest thing. It's what we care about. It's why we're in the business. So we want to make sure things are done right. I always will bring up when I first meet people is, if you have a new doctor that comes in and he has a new tray and he wants it specially just for him and he's got some items that you've never seen before. He's a different kind of doctor, likes to do things a little different. You're going to look at this and say, where the heck do I get this stuff? And how do I sterilize it? A lot of the larger companies are never going to take the time to even locate this stuff for you. This is our pack. This is what we do. This is how you have to buy it. And we take the time, even though a lot of stuff is not very expensive, we still take the time to make it just for you. So, and again, taking the responsibility. So us just being able to unload that off of them and to know that they have a contact to call for this stuff, I think is big. So, we say a sterile, processing partner, we really mean it because we want to be that contact when these things come up. Even if we can't get it, or if another company already has it and a patent on it and selling it, we'll probably know and be able to kind of point you in the right direction. But, to be the person they call for that means a lot, because that means the hospital really cares about their patients and they're really doing things the right way. So
what's the big deal about a disposable neural set, Blake or Bill?
Well, I mean, the primary reason with CJD is because a single standard autoclave is not going to kill that CJD. So it's going to come back, and the most common transmission, according to the CDC, for that CJD is surgical transmission between unrelated patients, because that improper sterilization of a device. So they recommend some pretty crazy things to do the sterilization or dispose of the thing altogether. And over the years, we put together a couple of different CJD kits. We have one in particular. It's got a Hudson Brayson bit, so they can, give the patient some comfort in that, it's not going to solve any problems other than comfort problems for them at this point. But the problem that it'll solve for the hospital is really, we didn't now transmit this and have multiple patients with an issue, and it's really on us. So again, back to that risk and reward as far as how you deal with your own processes and what you can and can't do. You need to be aware that that's something that's a big challenge to be able to reprocess. I don't think it's probably worth reprocessing. It's probably much more valuable to just have a single tray. I mean, they're not cheap, but relative to throwing out all your neuro stuff, are you kidding?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
really cheap.
Or relative to preventing cross-contamination.
Obviously, the biggest expense in any SPD is not actually the things that they're doing, it's the people who are doing it.
Right.
Their labor budget is the highest number in the whole place.
Yep.
So if you're going to address cost challenges that they have, it's not unlike Bioseal. I mean, we have the same problem. I have about 100 employees here. If I'm plus or minus one or two, it's not the end of the world. But if we don't figure out better processes, when we grow, our cost just continues to bubble. So you have to figure out, how do you do things with less people, because that's really your largest. If you look at your budget, that's the largest line item on it. and the supply line. I don't know what it is today, but I know when I was an SPD, it was like 19% of the hospital's budget was supplies. And,
Mhm.
they're trying to we need to save 20% to break even. Well, it's not going to be in that because there's only 18%, 19% for the
Right.
entire spend.
Right.
So it's got to be the human piece. And how do you figure out how to improve that?
You're a proponent for automation?
I'm a proponent for, so some of that is what we do, so
Right.
should you be packaging and sterilizing that stuff? Because somebody has to do it and they're taking time to do it. So you're paying them to sit in the basement and maybe I've been to places where there's a particular station and somebody mans that station and that's all they're doing all day long is, putting stuff in packages and sealing it, which is fine. That's one way to tackle it. But that's probably a pretty expensive job. By the time you pay somebody that's a tech and they're just taking up that space in the corner, putting that stuff together. Yeah, it's hard to justify that in my mind. It's probably the same person who says, I don't have enough text to reprocess. I have to work overtime. I have to do these different things. And so overtime is the next killer in that world, because if you're paying overtime, all of a sudden it's time and a half, and that guy, girl, that person, that tech is not as effective as they were,
6 hours ago.
6 hours ago.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember I'd grab a double shift anytime I could. And half that double shift, I might be taking a nap in the supply room. Anyway, don't tell
I
anybody.
also think about some of the products that they're cleaning. So, like for example, we sell single-use vaginal speculums, and sometimes you'll have clinics that get them sent back to the hospital to be cleaned. So they'll have thousands of these things, and they're spending a lot of time and resources cleaning these, scrubbing these, taking them apart, and all of this stuff. And there they have these, $1 million robotic arms sitting over there. And I've seen them hurry and rush through that. And I'm like, you got $1 million equipment and then something like you could buy from us, single use, and take all that away. And I'm like, spend your time and money on the important things. Take your time doing that kind of equipment. Stuff, monotonous stuff like that, just like tubing that you got to roll out and measure if you can even get an IFU for it, and cut and all. I mean, all that's time consuming. And so it's like, how can you save time when right now it might be more difficult to find more people to work, and keeping your place staffed? I mean, you really want to be as efficient as possible. So there's lots of ways to look at it, and one of the ways is what things can you go single use, which is kind of what our specialty is.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of components of it. And you guys have so many solutions that we in the industry don't even know that you have. So somehow, Advantage has always been an advocate. And Jamid, before and now during his Advantage career, has always been an advocate for Bioseal. I just think y'all are phenomenal, genius solution.